Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Thank you so much for clicking on the video. Today I'm going to be showing you the top 3 best meta builds in Elden Ring, the best of the best S tier category. Quick shout out to our sponsor AOE.com. If you don't want to grind for items or runes and you want items real quick, use my code COLD for 3% off. When deciding which builds were actually the best builds in Elden Ring, I looked at 3 different things: efficiency, reliability, and consistency. I understand that there are many ways to play Elden Ring, but at the end of the day, there will always be best in slot items. My goal with today's video is to equip you with the best weapons, talismans, spells, incantations to use for each and every single build that we go over today. I hope you guys are ready, because these are the top 5 best builds in Elden Ring.
Foul tarnished. In search of the Elden Ring. Emboldened by the flame of ambition.
The first build we're going to take a look at today, one of my personal favorites, is the Battle Mage. Obviously, it's no surprise that an intelligence build would make this list. Magic has been very powerful across all of the From Software games. I personally believe the best way to utilize intelligence, especially for endgame, is to focus on intelligence and dexterity. I feel like a lot of people forget just how important of a role dexterity plays when it comes to making an intelligence build, because dexterity not only increases your melee damage, but it's also going to increase your spellcasting speed. I was never really a fan of pure intelligence builds. I don't like to be limited in terms of combat, which is why we are taking full advantage of one of the best weapons in Elden Ring, the MOONVEIL Katana. Some may argue that the MOONVEIL Katana is overtuned, it does too much damage, and it's a little too reliable, which is exactly why you need to use it. This weapon is the best choice because it works against every single enemy in the game. The attacks are incredibly fast, and my personal favorite, it causes a lot of stagger. For the Battle Mage, if you are somewhere around level 50, your attributes would look something like this. You can see that we're mainly prioritizing vigor, mind, dexterity, and intelligence, and this is a similar trend that you're going to see as we get to different level brackets. As you get closer to level 100, you can see that you want to increase your vigor as much as you possibly can. Obviously, HP is extremely important in a game like this. We also increased our mind. Endurance is not going to be very important because our equipment load is going to be light. We also increased our dexterity to 25 and intelligence being our second highest attribute at 40. Around level 150, which is typically where most people like to stop leveling up their characters, your attributes could look something like this. For vigor, we increased our vigor to 50. For mind, I highly recommend going 38, just because a fully maxed out FP flask is going to completely replenish your FP bar at 38. Endurance is still pretty low. Strength, we're not worried about too much. We increased our dexterity to 40, and then we have intelligence at 60, which is actually the soft cap. At level 250, which is actually where I stopped leveling up my character, the attributes are going to follow the same principles. We have vigor at 60, mind 60, we increased our endurance just a little bit, strength at 18, dexterity 64, and we actually hit the hard cap for intelligence at 80. We have the MOONVEIL Katana fully maxed out at plus 10, 178 plus 135 physical attack power, but also 213 plus 218 magic damage. Attribute scaling heavily favors intelligence and dexterity, making this a great option for a Battle Mage build. And just another added benefit, we also get 50 blood loss buildup. The MOONVEIL Katana has one of the strongest Ashes of War in Elden Ring called Transient Moonlight. It's going to cause a lot of stagger to your targets. It's going to be extremely deadly to pretty much every enemy in the game, and it's very reliable. We have the Carrion Glintstone Staff plus 25 fully maxed out. Incredible attribute scaling S tier for intelligence, and another added benefit with this Glintstone Staff, we get a boost to our Carrion Sword sorceries. For the apparel, I'm using the Marias Mask, the Battle Mage Robe, the Blood-Soaked Hand Wraps, and the Battle Mage Leg Wraps. Next, we're going to take a look at the talismans on the build, which is actually very important, starting with the Shard of Alexander, which is going to greatly boost the attack power of skills. This is going to give us more damage on our Transient Moonlight skill. We also have Godfrey's Icon, which is going to enhance charge spells and skills. The Graven School Talisman, which raises potency of sorceries. and the green turtle talisman, which is going to raise our stamina recovery speed. The first spell that I'm using on the build is Terra Magica. I think it's very underrated because as long as you stay in this sphere, you get a 35% extra magic damage bonus. Now, I don't know about you guys, but an extra 35% magic damage is definitely something you don't want to pass up. The next spell is the Comet, which is pretty much going to be your main damage spell. It does use quite a bit of FP, especially if you charge it, but you can take advantage of that extra damage bonus coming from Godfrey's icon, the talisman that we went over earlier, and also remember, it's going to do a lot of damage. The next spell we have here is the Comet AZUR, my personal favorite. Now, trust me, if timed correctly after drinking your wondrous physic, you can pretty much one-phase every single boss in the game, making this your highest damage spell. We're also using the Night Comet, which works especially well against enemies that like to dodge your regular Comet spell. This one is very good to have. Next up, we have Loretta's Great Bow, which is really good just for the simple fact of the amount of range that you can actually get using this spell. You can hit your targets from pretty far away, and it's mainly what I use it for. We also have the Carrion Piercer, one of the Carrion Sword sorceries. Remember, we are getting a boost for these using the Carrion Glintstone Staff. This one in particular is very good because it does a lot of damage and it causes a lot of stagger. We also have Adula's Moonblade, one of the best sword sorceries, just because it causes frost buildup and it does a lot of damage. To make your build even better, I highly recommend using the Magic Shrouding Crack tier and the Cerulean Hidden tier for your Wondrous Physic mix. The Magic Shrouding Crack tier is going to temporarily boost magic attacks, and like I mentioned earlier, the Cerulean Hidden tier works incredibly well with your Comet AZUR spell, eliminating all FP consumption. The next build I highly recommend is the Flaming Knight build, easily one of the best builds in Elden Ring. What makes this build one of the best is the survivability that it offers, but not only that, the amount of destruction you can cause using the Blasphemous Blade, one of the best weapons in Elden Ring, along with the incredible fire incantations in the game, it's just too good to pass up. With this build in particular, most of your attribute points are going to be used towards Vigor, Faith, Strength, and most importantly, Endurance. You're going to need a pretty hefty equipment load to wield the Fingerprint Shield, literally the strongest shield in the game, best in slot option, as well as the Blasphemous Blade and the armor. This build does so much damage, the survivability is insane, and it's easily the best Faith build in Elden Ring. If you just started the game recently and you're around level 50, obviously you can't utilize this build to its full potential yet, but you could definitely work towards it. Your attributes would look something like this. You primarily want to focus on Vigor, Endurance, Strength, and Faith. As you get closer to level 100, your attributes would be similar to these that you see right here. Obviously, Vigor, HP is going to be extremely important, but at this point, you also want to spec some points into Mind. Obviously, the more focus you have, the more you can spam your skills and your incantations. Endurance is still going to be very important. Keep in mind, you are going to need a pretty hefty amount of stamina to use armor, the Fingerprint Shield, and the Blasphemous Blade. So until you get this to around 40 or 50, you're not going to be able to wield everything, making this a serious endgame build with high stats. Obviously, strength is going to be important. We want to get strength to 48 as soon as possible so we can utilize the Fingerprint Shield. And then faith, we are going to also increase over time. As you get closer and closer to level 200, which is where I think this build shines the most, this is the main attributes. This is what your build is going to look like. So Vigor, we hit the soft cap for 60 for our HP. Obviously, like I said, Mind is going to be important. Increase your Endurance as much as you possibly can so you can equip the armor, the shield, and the Blasphemous Blade. Strength, we want Strength at 48 so we can use the Fingerprint Shield. And then we also hit 60 for Faith, the soft cap. As I mentioned earlier, my character is level 250, and I'm going to show you guys what all of these builds look like at this level bracket. For Vigor, I have 60. Mind is pretty high, you can see here at 50. Like I said, Mind is also very important. Endurance, the more endurance you have on this build, trust me, the better. We have Endurance at 50, Strength at 48, and we actually have Faith at 84. The weapon we are using on this build is the Blasphemous Blade, fully maxed out plus 10. In my opinion, the best faith weapon in Elden Ring. The special Ash of War on this weapon that is exclusive to the Blasphemous Blade is called Taker's Flame. Easily one of the strongest Ashes of War in the game, It does so much damage with the right talismans, and the best part, you actually get HP back every time you hit your target. This self-healing, high damage faith weapon is incredible. You can see the attribute scaling heavily favors strength, dexterity, and faith. Since this build focuses primarily on fire damage, this is going to be the best option. Like I mentioned earlier, survivability is a key component of this build, which is why we are using the Fingerprint Stone Shield. Now mine is fully maxed out, and if you take a look here, we have 90 guard boost. On top of that, our damage negation against all of the elements in the game is incredible, and we also have a talisman on this build to make this shield even better. I'm also using the ERDTREE seal fully maxed out plus 10. This seal in particular has incredible incantation scaling, S tier for faith. For the apparel, I'm using the iron helmet, the Mausoleum Knight armor, which is one of the coolest armor pieces in the game, the Mausoleum Knight gauntlets, and the Mausoleum Knight greaves. Next up, we can take a look at the talismans on the Flaming Knight build, starting with the Phlox Canvas Talisman, which is going to greatly raise the potency of incantations. This is going to give us more damage with our fire abilities. This build also wouldn't be complete without the Fire Scorpion Charm, which is going to raise our fire attack. This is going to give us more damage with our incantations and more damage with our Blasphemous Blade. We are also using the Shard of Alexander that we went over earlier in the previous build. A great talisman to have. It works with pretty much every single build in the game. This is going to greatly boost the attack power of skills, giving us more damage with the Taker's Flame Ash of War. And then last but not least here, I highly recommend using the Great Shield Talisman. This is going to give you more survivability, boosting your guarding ability on your fingerprint shield, increasing your guard boost from 90 to 99. Next, we can take a look at the incantations on the build, starting with Golden Vow. Golden Vow is very good because it increases your offense and defense by 15%. Pair that with the Blessing of the ERDTREE, which stacks on top. This is going to give you HP over time, and Flame Grant Me Strength is going to be an incredible option for this build because it's going to increase your physical and fire affinity attack power by 20%. We also have the Giant's Flame Take Thee, which is an incredible range incantation, probably one of the best fire abilities in the game. It does so much damage, and one of the best things about it is you can charge it for more damage. We also have O Flame, which is a pretty good fire ability if you want to set your target on fire, but one of my personal favorite is Surge O Flame. What I like the most is you can spam this, it doesn't use much FP at all, and it causes a lot of stagger to most of the enemies in the game, especially if they're weak against fire. The last incantation is Flame Fall Upon Them. This one's really good for hitting multiple targets. It has a larger area of effect, and it does a lot of damage. The last thing we need to cover for the Flaming Knight build is our Wondrous Physic mix. I'm using the Flame Shrouding Crack tier and the Faith Knot Crystal tier. The Flame Shrouding Crack tier is going to boost our fire attacks, which means more damage with our incantations and more damage with the Taker's Flame Ash of War. On top of that, we also take full advantage of the Faith Knot Crystal tier, which is going to boost our overall faith. Alright, you guys, the last build on the list has to be one of the strongest builds in Elden Ring. This build focuses primarily on dexterity and arcane, which honestly is going to turn you into a killing machine. Very fast blood loss buildup, an incredibly fast time to kill, and trust me, with the right equipment and talismans, you are going to feel unstoppable. For anyone that wants to make a bleed build in Elden Ring, your best in slot option is going to be the Rivers of Blood Katana. Definitely on par with the MOONVEIL Katana, probably top 3 weapons in the game. The Corpse Piler Ash of War that's exclusive to the Rivers of Blood Katana is extremely deadly. Not only are you going to stack blood loss very quickly, any enemy that gets in your way is not going to stand a chance whatsoever. As you're leveling up your character, your primary focus is going to be Vigor, Dexterity, and Arcane. Obviously, Vigor is going to determine how much survivability you have. Dexterity is going to give you more damage with your katanas, and then Arcane is going to determine how fast blood loss buildup will occur. As you move closer to level 100, the same principles are going to apply. You want to make sure your vigor, dexterity, and arcane is increasing over time. At level 150, I highly recommend getting your vigor to 60, which is the soft cap. I would also recommend increasing your mind to at least 20, maybe 25, just so you can utilize the Corpse Piler Ash of War ability on the Rivers of Blood Katana as much as you possibly can. Endurance is not going to be too important because our equipment load is going to be light. We increased our dexterity to 45 and arcane to the soft cap at 60. As you reach level 250, your attributes could look something like this. Keep in mind, I do have Godrick's Great Rune equipped. My vigor is at 75. I increase my mind a lot because with a higher level character like mine, you have way more flexibility. So we have our mind at 43. Again, endurance isn't going to be very important. Strength at 17. We have dexterity at 78. We also increased our faith. Now, typically when you get to a higher level, I highly recommend increasing your faith to at least 25, just so you can take advantage of Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength, which is going to increase your defense and offense simultaneously. And then, last but not least here, we have our Arcane at 85. For our primary weapon, the Rivers of Blood Katana, fully maxed out plus 10, you can see our physical attack power is 186 plus 258. One of the best things about this weapon is it has fire damage as well. So any enemy that's weak against fire, this is going to be extremely effective. Attribute scaling favors dexterity with B, arcane at D, and we also get that additional 78 blood loss buildup. Another great alternative to the Rivers of Blood Katana is Eleonora's Pole Blade. You can see here mine is fully maxed out plus 10. Also does fire damage just like the Rivers of Blood Katana. We have a little bit more blood loss buildup on this weapon, but what makes this weapon unique, not only is it a twin blade, but it has one of the coolest Ashes of War in the game called Pole Blade Dance. This attack is very quick, it does a lot of damage, and right at the end you see there, you actually do an attack while pulling back, which is extremely good when you're trying to get some distance from your target, but also attack at the same time. If you don't want to rely solely on the Rivers of Blood or Eleonora's Pole Blade, and you want to run two dual-wield katanas, I highly recommend using a Uji Katana and adding an Occult Ash of War. For me, personally, I chose Seppuku, but adding Occult is going to give you more damage overall, and it's going to give you higher arcane scaling. So if your arcane is already at a high amount like ours is on this build, Occult is definitely going to be your best option. For example, when we go to the Site of Grace to add Seppuku Ash of War, you can see here that we have Blood Affinity and also we have Occult. We are taking full advantage of the Occult Affinity just because it gives us more damage. You can see here that our physical attack power and our arcane scaling actually decreases if we choose Blood, which is why I highly recommend using the Occult. We also have a seal on this build. I'm using the Dragon Communion Seal, fully maxed out plus 10. The main reason I'm using this one is because it has really good arcane scaling S tier. Now, the only incantations that you are going to be utilizing on this build is Golden Vow, which is going to increase your defense and offense by 15%. Also, we are taking advantage of Flame Grant Me Strength, which is going to give us an additional 20% physical and fire affinity attack power. And Flame Cleanse Me is always good to have in case you are somewhere that has poison or rot in the vicinity. For the talismans, I highly recommend starting with the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia, which is going to greatly raise attack power with successive attacks. Pair that with the Lord of Blood's Exultation, which works incredible with this build. Item effect, blood loss in vicinity increases attack power, and this is going to stack with the Rotten Winged Sword Insignia. We are also taking advantage of the Shard of Alexander, which is going to greatly boost the attack power of our skills. And last but not least, the green turtle talisman, which raises our stamina recovery speed. For my wondrous physic mix, I am using the green burst crystal tier and the thorny crack tier. The green burst is going to temporarily boost our stamina recovery speed, and the thorny crack tier is going to boost successive attack power. Well, there you have it, guys. Those are the top 3 meta builds in Elden Ring. If you found this video helpful in any way, shape, or form, a thumbs up would be very much appreciated. Also, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this one. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.